What is going on, everyone? This is Drew Code Sports Talk, and I am your host, Andrew Wright. And over in his living room is my co-host, Cody Johnson. Cody.
What is going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday evening for all of those listening and watching on the live. We appreciate you guys. We've got a jam-packed show to talk about, and it is full to the brim. It's literally NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. But before we get started, do not forget to subscribe to the podcast. Wherever you listen to your podcast, subscribe there. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on social media. All the links are in the description below. So with that being said, let's get started.
Take off, I'ma break off from the weak minds. They can stay soft. You can change lives, you create thoughts, never waste time. You got one shot, you got one life. Better pop off. What do you like? Make a dream job. No 9-5, no mean boss. Just my life and free thoughts.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Yes, it is another week of Drew Code Sports Talk. Man, it has been a crazy week in sports. It's also been a very crazy week for myself and my family. We got some big things happening over here. So that's, stress inducing, of course. But you know what? We're going to roll with the punches because it's all going to be better in the long run. So anyway, enough of all that. Cody, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good, dude. Just hanging out. Had a busy day at work, and then we've been enjoying some lovely rain that's hit the valley, which we desperately need. And I don't know about you, dude, but I love the day after it rains where it's extremely cold because then I get to wear all sorts of layers because it just sits in a box 90% of the year. So, but yeah, man, I'm excited, and I know about the exciting plans you were alluding to. You filled me in on our lunch date last week, so I won't spoil it, but it is cool stuff that's happening. And I am actually going to put you on the spot. You have even cooler news to talk about involving the Hornets. So I'd like for you to tell the audience, because everyone's on pins and needles, of course.
Yeah, all zero of you. I just got confirmation a couple weeks now that I am actually going to be doing announcing the Sanger West boys basketball games, and also I will be doing the girls basketball games. So I will be doing both boys and girls, JV and varsity. So really excited about that. I'm super stoked. It's a brand new gym that they have. Now this school has been a school for 3 years now, but this is the first year they're having varsity games. And also, this is the first year that they got to use their, they finally opened up their gymnasium. So I'm really, really excited that I get to see what the gymnasium looks like. I'm excited to see how the boys and girls basketball team plays. And so if you hear me talk about Sanger West basketball, boys and girls, on the podcast, you kind of will understand why, because I'm going to be seeing it a lot. I basically have a full schedule from starting Thursday this week until if we get to the finals, it'll be February 24th, and possibly further if we get into like state stuff. But I'm not going to get ahead of that. But I'm really excited about it. I mean, either way, I'm going to be into mid-February, so really excited about all that.
Yeah, well, you did football earlier this season for them as well, too. So I think what's really cool is I've dubbed you the voice of them in tongue in cheek, but it's almost like it's coming to that, because I know, too, we're kind of hoping that they ask you to do baseball as well, but we got to get through football and basketball. Yeah. So fingers crossed that you get the trifecta, and it'd be really cool for you to keep going on this train. So
I would love to do baseball. Oh my gosh. I really hope I get to do that. And I've told him, I've been very open to the athletic director. I told him, I said, hey, if you need anyone in baseball, he's like, well, we're not sure yet. Just because, we haven't really gotten to that point. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just putting it out in the universe that I want to do that. And he was like, all right, I got you. So hopefully I'm not going to count my chickens, but, it seems like they at least like me because they let me do football and now basketball. So it seems to be working out. Maybe I'm their only option, but you know what? I'll still take that.
No, that's very true. But it's a really cool news. So I appreciate you for sharing that to everybody who's been following it, me included. So
yeah, and then we're we're getting ready to move. We don't know where we're gonna kind of be moving to yet. That's been. I'm not gonna bore everyone with the details, but at least we're gonna be out of the house that I've been at for 5-6 years now. So, hopefully we're trying to get a bigger place, which it looks like we're going to, but it's also going to be kind of a fixer upper. So, we're going to be kind of in and out of, if we do get this house, we're going to be kind of in and out of this new place, because we're going to be trying to fix it up. So it's going to be crazy, but in the long run, it's going to be really nice. So we're just, I've asked you to get me a ton of boxes, which you've been very generous of, and I thank you immensely, because we've already started moving stuff out of the house, which has been really nice. And my in-laws basically were like, hey, we'll give up our garage for you. So we're putting everything in our garage. So I appreciate them for letting us do that. But yeah, it's crazy, man. But you know what? It's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth, because now we have 2 kids. So we have to kind of give our child, one of our oldest, who's now starting to kind of get into the mode of, I want my personal space. I want to kind of do my own thing here and there. And so we have to kind of give her that. And I'm excited that it looks like we're going to be able to do that. So.
Very cool. Well, speaking of craziness, it's actually a perfect segue to our first one, and I'll let you kick off the question. But of course, we'd be remiss not to talk about the craziness of the NFL that just happened, especially in the last 24 hours regarding the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah. This was crazy to me. Frank Reich out as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. He had been and they announced later that day that he was going to be replaced by Jeff Saturday, who in no shape or form was part of the organization other than he used to play for them. So a lot of people were upset about it. A lot of people were like, hey, maybe it'll work out, yada, yada, yada. Whatever your feelings may be, Cody, let's start with Frank Reich first, and then we're going to go into the Jeff Saturday. Was this the right move for the Colts to fire Frank Reich?
Yeah, I think it was. I think so. I'm surprised that they did it this soon. I would have thought that they would have maybe waited until the end of the season before they made that decision. But I figured, for the last, I'd say since last season, they've kind of been on a downward spiral. The season hasn't played out to anyone's expectations in that organization. And, it was just kind of the cherry on top, basically, when you bench Matt Ryan, who you traded for. Jonathan Taylor's been injured majority of the season. Your team is not playing up to their full capabilities. I feel like it was time to do so. And even so, too, I think a lot of the decisions that Frank Reich made with multiple quarterback changes, personnel decisions, I think, played into a huge part of this. But, again, I think Jim Irsay of the Colts, never without flash in what he does, for sure, which is why he's made certain outlandish decisions. I think Frank Reich, though, will find footing somewhere as a coordinator. I think he's a really good coach. I think that maybe had he had a consistent quarterback for more than one season, it might have worked out a little bit better. But, it is what it is, and it was time. I mean, you can't be a playoff team for 2 seasons, miss out, and potentially be last place in a division that you essentially were crowned division winners before the season kicked off. I ultimately think it was the right decision. I'm just surprised at the timing with more than half the season to go and the Colts not even waiting until the end of it. I think that was my biggest surprise of it.
I actually like Frank Reich, and I'll explain a little bit about that. But I thought he kind of deserved better, and I'm kind of with you. I thought they would at least just wait till the end of the year. Like, listen, has it gone great? No, it obviously hasn't. It's gone pretty sour. And it looks like the Titans are basically running away with the division. The Colts kind of have left a lot to desire. The Jaguars are kind of a hit and miss team. And the Texans have probably been the worst team in the league as of right now. But I I thought they should have waited until the end of the year. I know, their thought process is, hey, if we get rid of him now, maybe it'll spark some. Maybe it'll spark a fire under the players and say, hey, let's make it to the playoffs. Well, then they, replace him with Jeff Saturday, who they're like, okay, we've seen him maybe 3 times. I remember him watch with the old man Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. So overall, I really just don't understand the move. Listen, I think Frank Reich is going to be another head coach, if not at least an OC. I got to be honest with you, man. We were talking about this the other day, and I really actually like Frank Reich. The reason I do is Frank Reich was having some success with Carson Wentz. Did Wentz fail his last 2 games of last season? Yes. But overall, what did he throw? He went 27 touchdowns and 7 picks or 9 picks or something like that. That's still a really good season.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he had a chance to get in the playoffs, and he lost it. But I wouldn't also put everything on him. The defense has to do stops. The players have to kind of step up. Yes, he turned the ball over a little bit more with fumbles and stuff. So, I mean, I get that. I'm not saying Carson Wentz was this, phenomenal player. But at the same time, I think Frank Reich was starting to figure out Carson Wentz. And I think he just had a couple of bad games. I think he had one bad game that kind of led to another because he was still in his head. And I think we've all have seen that Carson Wentz completely falls apart every time. And the other thing was he wanted to keep Carson Wentz. He didn't want to get rid of him. But because his owner said, hey, he completely fell apart the last 2 games. We need to get rid of him. Let's go after Matt Ryan. They get Matt Ryan, and he looks completely washed. And it's just like, you can put the blame on Frank Reich, but you could also say that it might be ownership that's really kind of tying his hands a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think the early years with Frank Reich, that team was looking really good. And we always kept saying, all they need is a quarterback. All they need is a quarterback. And I felt like Carson Wentz, although wasn't the best option, but was kind of their only option at that time. And they made him look good. I mean, I'm almost convinced that if they would have gotten Baker Mayfield this year, that it would have worked out for them a little bit better than it is with Matt Ryan. So I don't know. I think Frank Reich is a good head coach. I think his best shot is to become an OC. Again, do the OC for a couple of years. When a head coaching job comes up and they start throwing his name in the hat again, I think you could look at him. But I think with this whole Colts fiasco, I think he's probably not going to get a chance at a head coach unless someone really does overlook the ownership aspect of it and is like, I think Frank Reich is good, which I believe. But Cody, let's get into the other thing of Jeff Saturday being named the head coach. This was, I think universally, a lot of people think that this was a head-scratching move. What do you think?
I mean, there's no better way to say it. I remember yesterday opening up Twitter, and this was after I think you had polled me that Frank Reich was fired. So I didn't even see the notification yet. So I opened Twitter, and the first thing I saw was not that Frank Reich was fired. It was that Jeff Saturday was hired as head coach. And then I thought, oh, this is one of those parody accounts. Like I think on Twitter, I follow NFL meme or something like that. So they always post parody graphics to, like, just joke around. Yeah. And I swore that's what I thought I was seeing. And then I saw, no, this is a legitimate NFL blue checkmark verified $8.99 paid subscription for this blue checkmark verified account that said Jeff Saturday was the new interim head coach. And I just found that strange because do I like Jeff Saturday? Yes. I think he's very insightful, clearly an intelligent football player, played with Peyton for all those years as a Colt, also played in Green Bay for the last part of his career. But I just don't understand because in their own coaching organization, they have, I believe, still John Fox, Gus Bradley, who's former defensive coordinator for the Raiders, and you have Reggie Wayne, who was also a part of Jeff Saturday's team that could have easily been an interim head coach. And again, I think it just alludes to what you were pointing out and what I was saying earlier with Jim Irsay just being this outrageous kind of owner that is stepping into places he probably shouldn't. For example, getting rid of Carson Wentz when Frank Reich probably could have helped him out and developed him another season. I imagine the Colts could have been a little bit better with Carson Wentz having a second year in this system. Frank Reich having a second full year with Carson Wentz to kind of help him and bring him along and, having the team around him. And now I wonder, with you bringing in Jeff Saturday, what are all those players going to feel and think around Saturday who wasn't there during any of their training camp, wasn't there any of their preseasons? Ryan Clark on ESPN had a really great piece where he said, it's the being familiar with somebody and being comfortable with them, which is what probably sold them on the idea to have somebody like Jeff Saturday take over. But he wasn't there during the dog days of getting them in shape and building that relationship. I mean, I think I read on Twitter that he was there on somewhat of a consultant type basis. So whatever that extent was, that's as much as he's been within the organization. And now he's given the keys to the Colts. And I will also stress too, interim head coach for the remainder of the season, which is even more mind-blowing because he's not been anywhere part of this organization from the start. And now he's going to finish the season as their head coach, which even sounds stranger when you say it out loud. But still, though, I think if anyone says anything other than shocked, they're probably lying. But that's my initial thoughts. And I have additional feelings about it in more confusion and like logistically, how does this work out? And that's my main takeaway and feelings with Jeff Saturday. I hope he's successful, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's put in a position of success at the moment. And I just hope it doesn't turn out as bad as we think it will.
I mean, I feel like the only reason he got this was because, he played for the Colts, but I feel like also like he's a good motivator, which I listened to him when he was an analyst on ESPN and, doing his thing. And you could tell, like, this is a fired up guy. This guy, like, I mean, you could understand, like, how he could eventually become a head coach, possibly. But you have to do the work to get there. This was almost like if Jim Irsay called you up, Cody, and was like, hey, we want you to be the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. And you'd be like, yeah, okay. What?
Yeah, someone's calling me.
Yeah, please don't call this number again. They're like, no, seriously, we want you. And you'd be like, okay, fine. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I've played Madden for a few years. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and it's the elephant in the room, and I have no problem saying it. There's a lot of racism in this pick here. Reggie Wayne would have been a much better candidate in this scenario than Jeff Saturday. Like you said, Gus Bradley, I mean, he's a white coach, but he's had head coaching experience, and he's been the DC. I mean, Reggie Wayne, I believe he's the wide receiver coach. Mm-hmm. I mean, at least that makes sense because at least these guys are like, hey, let's win for Reggie. Hey, let's win for Gus, or let's win for you named John Fox. Let's win for Fox. Guys like that, like you hear their name and you're like, yeah, let's win for them because we've been here, we've been playing with them, they've been in the building, we love this guy. I mean, it just reminds me of the whole Raiders situation last year when Gruden left. Mm-hmm. It was like we thought, okay, Gus Bradley probably will be the guy, and then we were surprised because they named Rich Bisaccia, which we were kind of like, I don't know. I mean, he's a special teams coach, and a lot of people are like, this guy is a good motivator. The guys love him every single time. They're going to want to play for him. And what did they do? They played for him, and we ended up getting in the playoffs, which was great. But with this, it's like no one has seen him. I mean, if he's a consultant, he's not a consultant for the players. He's a consultant for the coaches, maybe, but probably more so Jim Irsay. And that's kind of why I'm like, this is so weird. And it just seems like if I owned a team and we had a head coach and I was like, we got to get rid of him. And I was like, shoot, we need an interim head coach. I'm going to do my buddy a favor. So I call you and it's like, hey, Cody, why don't you coach my team? And you'd be like, all right, cool. Yeah. I mean, why would you say no to that? But at the same time, I'm doing a bad job because I'm just doing my friends a favor. That's not how you own a team. You own a team, but you have to do the necessary things for the team. You can't just do whatever you want to do and then all of a sudden think that there's going to be no backlash, because eventually, aka Washington Commanders, something's going to come back and people are going to want you out. And I think this Jim Irsay thing, now if it works out, he's going to look like an absolute genius, but I really don't see this working out at all, because Jeff Saturday even was saying, or he was a head coach in a high school team, I believe it was last year, 3-7. That's his head coaching experience, high school, and he went 3-7. I mean, you could maybe blame it on the players. It wasn't a great atmosphere. Maybe his other coaches. He's still 3-7. It's not great. It doesn't show me that his players are going to want to play for him. And he was in the building. Now he's coming in and he hasn't been in the building, and he's got to do this. I don't like this at all. And I really think this is extremely this is an extremely racist thing that I'm seeing here right now. It blows my mind that Jim Irsay wasn't even like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. Like, maybe if you're going to get someone off the street, then maybe go after someone with a bigger name. But I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, totally agree. I wouldn't necessarily say racism plays in a part, but I would say nepotism for sure, favoritism. Like, and this is such a, God, what's the term I want to say? This is such a left field decision that no one saw coming. Like, you could have asked me for 100 candidates I assumed would be better fits in the Colts organization to be an interim head coach, and Jeff Saturday wouldn't even come close. You could have given me 500 spots. I would not have guessed him. And then I know too, we didn't put this in the prom, but there's actually a kid, and I'll say that because he's younger than us, who's now going to be play caller for the Colts this Sunday. And I think he was like assistant QB
to the quarterback coach. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever that position is. And now he's going to be calling the plays.
Basically, he's the guy who makes sure that his mic and headset is working for when the offensive coordinator is calling for one of the quarterbacks. That's basically all he's doing. Maybe a couple of waters here and there.
It's giving me assistant to the regional manager vibes.
Yes, that's exactly, 100%.
But and then I say that to say too, like, I really hope that the Raiders come out this Sunday, because this is a lot of dysfunction for a team we're playing, and I'm really scared if we lose to this team, what's going to happen to Raider Nation. We might actually implode.
I don't even want to entertain it right now. It's only going to make me mad, and I'm going to go into a whole spout about the Raiders, and I don't want it right now. All right, let's move on, Cody, before you really make me angry.
Okay, great.
So the Bills lost to the Jets, and I don't want to say that was the biggest upset of the year, but I think it's pretty close, at least. So my question to you, Cody, is, are the Jets for real?
You know what? I'm going to say they are, man.
No, you're not. No, you don't believe that. You don't believe it because you even were questioning it. You don't believe it.
I mean, first off, okay, I think if they had Breece Hall, I would be a lot more confident with that. I do feel like there is some sort of underlining situation that's going on with, like, Zach Wilson and like Elijah Moore, who was really upset that he wasn't targeted more in his last game. I think that there is obviously some growing pains that's happening, but I mean, they have a really good defense. That defense is essentially what won them that game. It wasn't necessarily Zach Wilson and that offense. It's not like they marched down the field and ran it up and down the Bills' throat. They just played better defense than them, and they really got Josh Allen to just create mistakes that he doesn't normally do. And I think that's the thing about Josh Allen's game is, like, he's such a gunslinger and chance taker that, you know, if you just have a really good defensive plan, then you can capitalize on it. And I think Sauce Gardner is just that type of cornerback, because he was the one that was a real defensive disruptor for the Jets defense. And I think, like, they are legit in the sense of like, they're in a very competitive division with, the Miami Dolphins, New England Patriots, Bills in that division. And then they beat the Bills in a divisional matchup. And I got to say, man, like if they can just continue this hot streak, like, yeah, they're legit. Cause some of these other teams, like you can't trust. And like, for example, I'm a Bengals, I'm rooting for the Bengals in the sense of I think that they'll be an AFC threat that no one's thinking of. But on any given Sunday, who do you trust more, the Bengals or the Jets? And I think that the Jets defense is really good, and they've kind of proven that. They've had some surprising wins, and here they are. What is it, 6-3 or 6-2 or something of that nature? And they are a surprising team that is really taking everyone aback. Like everyone's underestimating the Jets, and they're making them pay for it. And I think they can probably continue this. Do I think that they're going to get to like the conference championship? No, but do I think that they can sneak into a wild card and really mess up some plans? Yeah, I think so. They kind of remind me of when the Seattle Seahawks got into the wild card and they played I think it was the number 2 or 1 seed New Orleans Saints, and that's where the quake happened in Seattle. That's what this team is giving me the same vibes of like their defense is what's really the standout. Their offense has its moments, but given the opportunity, they could surprise people and could, if you don't watch out, you don't study, and you're not ready for them, they will make you pay. So that's what I would say about the Jets.
I don't think they're for real. I don't believe in Zach Wilson. I think they're winning despite him. Like it's not like they're actually winning because of what he's doing. Now, obviously, he's not really turning the ball over as well. So, I mean, I will give him credit for that. He's been taking care of the ball pretty well, and the offense scores when they need to. I mean, it's more than what I can say for the Raiders right now. So, but I'm with you. I think the defense is what is the shining star on this team. That defense is spectacular, but that defense is going to start getting ruled a little bit, start to kind of drag its feet a little while, because that offense, although yes, they do score when they need to, it doesn't seem like they can really move the ball as well. It seems like they have to play the position game, the field position game. So, which is good, but you can't always rely on your defense all the time. Sometimes your defenses just kind of break down every now and then, and I just don't think they have the offense for it. I don't think they have the quarterback for it, and as good as Robert Saleh has been this year, I don't think they have the head coach for that just yet. I think maybe next year they could, but I do think they're really going to have to start thinking about getting another quarterback or something, which I don't think they will, but I do think if you're being realistic about what you're seeing, I don't think Zach Wilson is really doing what they thought he would be able to be doing here in this second year. So Cody, another game that we saw where was kind of a surprise, not necessarily in the outcome that the Buccaneers ended up winning, but it was kind of more a surprise of how bad both teams looked. The Buccaneers beat the Rams in the final seconds, but it just was. I was watching in the fourth quarter at my father-in-law's house, and they're big Ram fans, but it was ugly. It was ugly football. It just wasn't. And it wasn't like you were looking at the defense going, man, these defenses are playing really well. It was just kind of more of like both offenses weren't playing great. I mean, the defenses were doing what they needed to, so I wouldn't say they were bad, but it was just kind of like, I don't know what's going on. And the last drive for the Buccaneers, I mean, the Rams just let them do whatever they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, what is going on? So is it time to panic for the Rams and for the Bucs?
For the Bucs, I think that they have time to stay cool. And the only reason why I say that is because the win that they had and the way that they won could actually carry them some momentum, because in their NFC South division, it's wide open. And I still think that the Buccaneers will pull it together. They've got Tom Brady. They have a really good defense. I know that you were mentioning that it didn't play the greatest on Sunday, but I mean, it outlasted the Rams defense. I do think that Tom Brady and the Buccaneers will figure it out offensively. I think that their run game right now is in shambles. If they can figure that out and get healthy, I think it'll be okay. If I'm the Rams, though, yeah, I'm kind of panicking a little bit because the NFC West is way more competitive this year. And, even the Cardinals, who have a losing record, they're very, very good. They're going to be very hard to beat. Seattle Seahawks looks like the absolute best team right now in that division, which is shocking. Geno Smith is leading them to an absolutely insane season. And then you have the 49ers, who just got Christian McCaffrey. And I don't know how the Rams can keep up with that. The only saving grace that they have is they got to clinch one of the 3 wild card spots. And I think that there are better NFC teams right now because for some reason the Rams don't have a running game. They don't have a very good offensive line. Their defense is essentially doing everything they can to get the ball back for them. And just so that way the Rams offense can turn it right back over or go 3 and out to where Aaron Donald and the crew have to go right back out on the field and exhaust themselves. So if I'm the Buccaneers, there's hope because their division is kind of up in the air right now. But if I'm the Rams and they're 3-6 now, and I think they're dead last they're either tied for last in their division or at 3rd place at least, I think that their time to panic is right now just because they've got a lot more issues that have not been solved. They better hope they win on the OBJ sweepstakes because for some reason, Allen Robinson has been coming alive the last couple of weeks, but even still, though, there's something missing. They're needing that running dynamic. They need Matthew Stafford to make better decisions with the football, and they just don't look like themselves from last season. So I would panic if I was the Rams.
I'm reading Nick's comment right now where he's saying that the Bucs hot take. He said hot take, so that means he thinks there's a possibility, but he's not going to bet his whole life on it. But anyway, he put hot take. I have a feeling that may have been the Bucs' last win of the season. I would disagree, Nick, because I'm looking at the schedule right now. Now they do face the Seahawks next week, and it's in Tampa. So I think that game could go either way, but I would probably bet the Seahawks right now.
Yeah.
Then they go to Cleveland, and I think that is just before Watson comes back. And Cleveland, their offense is horrible right now. Then they play New Orleans, which I think is a very winnable game, but that one's in Tampa. They go to San Francisco. I think that's a loss. Then they play Cincinnati in Tampa. I would actually pick Cincinnati in that one. Then they go to Arizona. I think they can beat Arizona. And then they play the last 2 games is the Panthers and Falcons. The Falcons game is in Atlanta. The Panthers game is in Tampa. And I think those are very winnable games. So I will say this. I don't think it's time to panic for the Buccaneers just because the division isn't fantastic. And the other thing is, that you have Tom Brady, you have a good enough team that I don't think you could say that this team is done. But I could also see a scenario, and to Nick's point, I could also see a scenario where they lose most of those games because I think a lot of those games right now, if we were, looking at the beginning of the year like you and I did, Cody, where we were predicting the schedules, we would have said that's a easy schedule for them. I mean, maybe New Orleans might be tough, Cincinnati, San Francisco. But other than that, I think they win those games easily. But now we're kind of looking at them and going, the Seattle game could be 50-50. The Cleveland game could be 50-50. The New Orleans 50-50. The Cardinals could potentially be 50-50. So there's a lot of those games where you're kind of like, I could see it go the other way. So I'm not going to say it's time to panic for the Buccaneers just yet, just because I think they're benefiting from their division. But for the Rams, I think it might be time to panic. When Jalen Ramsey is speaking out, and I know a lot of people roll their eyes like, oh, Ramsey's always talking. He's always blah, blah, blah. But listen, Jalen Ramsey is a guy who can't hold his tongue. And I don't think that's necessarily bad for a team like this right now, because he's like, yo, we suck. Like, this is bad.
Mm-hmm.
We got to start stepping up. Like, we shouldn't be losing these games. And I didn't think they should have lost that game. It was honestly the worst defense that they had played all year in the final seconds. And it just so happened to be against Tom Brady. I don't think it was anything that Tom Brady did. I think it was just the Rams were giving so much space. And Tom Brady was like, well, we'll just keep throwing these little slot outs, and we'll just keep doing that until they take it away. And they never did. Excuse me. So I would say, if I'm looking at it from the way that the teams have been playing, I would say both need to panic. But again, like I said, the Buccaneers, they're kind of benefiting from where they're at right now. Whereas the Rams, you have Seattle, who's thriving right now, and you have San Francisco, who's getting better and better each week. Now, San Francisco constantly has injuries, so who knows? That could be the detriment for them. But as of right now, man, I'm with you. I think Los Angeles could become the last place team. I think Arizona is worse, but the Rams, they don't have an easy schedule. I don't think the Cardinals do either, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I think the Rams, I mean, obviously we know what the Rams are going to do next year in the draft. Offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. Like, that is a parent. But I also do think they're going to need to start thinking about Matthew Stafford. He might be coming close to the end of his days, because although he has been hit a lot and he's had to, take a few sacks or, force some passes, or he's kind of had a fumble here and there, I think you're starting to see his arm is starting to go a little bit. It's not as accurate or as tight as it was. And I think they need to start thinking this maybe, I'm not saying like next year is going to be his last year. I'm saying Matthew Stafford may be done in the next, 3-4 years. But I think it's time to start thinking about maybe having a succession plan for when Stafford is officially done. So, and I think that's a little scary to even think about it.
I hear Lamar Jackson's free after this season.
That would be interesting. I'm not a Rams fan. I mean, I root for them because it's my in-laws team. So I watch them a lot more than I watch a lot of other teams. Mm-hmm. That would be really interesting. And Sean McVay's offense, I would be really interested in seeing that. But if they sign Lamar Jackson to a huge deal, I'm gonna question everything about the Rams, because I'm gonna be like, where the hell did they come up with all this money to pay for literally everyone? Like, I don't understand where they bank. Please let me know. And do they just give you extra money for banking with them? Because if that's the case, I will gladly join that bank.
Yeah, I don't know why I threw that out there, but I think that would be interesting. That's a quarterback that's coming up, and he doesn't sound like he's going to re-sign with Baltimore. Baltimore doesn't sound like they want to commit to him. They just traded for Roquan Smith, who's going to need to get paid this offseason. Someone's got to get paid, and Lamar Jackson may be looking for a new home. And LA looks really nice this time of year. So
all I'm going to say is Baltimore would be dumb to get rid of Lamar Jackson. Would be dumb.
You know what? The Colts just hired an ESPN analyst. NFL teams making decisions do not surprise me anymore, man. Who knows what in the world happened?
Maybe he's going to Indianapolis. Maybe that was the play.
That would be the worst market Cody. For him to be traded to.
All right, Cody, let's get back on the train tracks here. So let's talk about Raider football. I know we've been kind of dreading it and not wanting to, but we have to. We have it on our notes. Whatever has on our notes, we have to talk about it. Just kidding. Anyway, so the Raiders lose again, and they lose in a terrible fashion. They lose another game where they were up 17 points, basically up by 3 scores. So we're 2-6. It's not great. People are calling for Derek Carr. People are calling for Josh McDaniels. People are calling for Patrick Graham. People are calling for, the Raiders are calling for Jonathan Abram because they just cut him today. So there's a lot of finger pointing, but Cody, do the Raiders need to tank the rest of the season, or should they try and get to 500?
See, okay, this is what makes this tough, because we're asking what do we want to do for pride's sake and what should we do for our organization. Here's what I'll say. We've already committed a lot of money to players like Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, Derek Carr, Devontae Adams. I think what we need to do is, I think for the sake of the locker room and for the morale, we need to fight to get to at least 500. Is my opinion. I think we need to find a way to work together to get on the same page, to see that McDaniels' system works, that we can finish football games, because it's not going to, even if we did tank per se to get a top draft pick, it doesn't mean anything if we don't learn how to finish games and win in the opportunities that we have, because all we're going to do is frustrate ourselves. Now, I think for sure from now on, the expectation is let's just see how this game plays out. And that's why I alluded to with the Colts being dysfunctional, and yet the Raiders are playing them this Sunday. I don't know how optimistic I am about the Raiders playing them. So I'm just going to say, anything could happen. And I'd like to say the Raiders have a great opportunity, just because the Colts are so disorganized. The Raiders could not have a better opportunity to kind of get some sort of momentum or some sort of confidence to win. But I will say, I think just for the morale of the team, and just so that way they can all show that they can play as a unit, I think we do need a fight to be at 500. The expectation is to just finish a season strong as best we can. I don't even think we're going to get to a wild card nor the playoffs. So that's not anything I'm now anticipating or my expectations are. Right now, my expectations are, let's finish with the best record we possibly can. I think we're still worthy enough to get to 500 as long as we just come together. And I think this is a great opportunity for that building process to start. So that's what I'll say, is I think 500 is what I would still strive for if I were the Raiders.
I tend to agree. I would rather just go for 500. I know a lot of people are like, let's tank, let's go after a new quarterback. Listen, we'll get to it in a moment. I'm not going to go that far, but it depends on what McDaniels wants to do, because right now he's our head coach. Sorry, my dog is right here scratching himself. You're going to hear the jingling here. Anyway, it just depends on what he wants to do. I mean, if McDaniels, when he came in, he said he wanted to work with Derek Carr. He wanted Derek Carr to be his quarterback. Okay, fine, whatever. If that's the case, then we need to go for 500. Because in no way, shape, or form are you going to tank and be like, oh, we're going to still keep Derek Carr, whatever. But at the same time, I could also see a scenario where you do tank, but you don't take a quarterback. I am kind of under the impression that Josh McDaniels doesn't want to tank. I don't think he's really trying to tank, aka why the discussions with him and Mark Davis have been coming about. I don't think that's just like Mark Davis not knowing the plan, but Josh McDaniels was like, whoa, we were tanking the whole time, I think it's more so like they were talking about, this was supposed to be a playoff team, and obviously it's not been working out. And I think they're just having discussions on, okay, what do we want to do? Do we want to try and save face, or do we want to trade everybody? And they ended up not trading anybody. So to me, it tells me that they are going to try for 500. Now, do I think they could get there? I do. I mean, to be perfectly honest, if we're going to spit out crazy thoughts here, if they lose one more game but win the rest of their games, they could still have a potential. They could still become a playoff team, even 2 losses. But they couldn't lose more than that. I think that's too far-fetched. Now, I'm not saying they're going to. I'm not saying they're going to do this where they're all of a sudden they're just going to start winning. I think the defense is horrendous. I think it's the worst defense in the NFL. Our offensive line has not played well at all. Hunter Renfrow regressed. Darren Waller never plays. Josh Jacobs has been phenomenal, but Derek Carr regressed. And I've been a big proponent of Derek Carr, and we'll go into the next question here, where a lot of people have been saying that, oh, we need to fire Josh McDaniels or we need to get rid of Derek Carr. So I'm going to propose this to you, Cody, first. I'll let you answer it, and then I'll go into what I think. But to answer the first question, I think they should tank because we need a good offensive line or at least another pass rusher because Chandler Jones is not doing it. I mean, I don't know what happened to him. I don't know how you go from Arizona to Las Vegas where you have Max Crosby on the other side versus J.J. Watt, who's always injured. He never plays. And for some reason, Chandler Jones is worse with a better pass rusher on the other side. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't think that's all Patrick Graham, but I do think he has some responsibility for it. So I think they should tank because we need a game-changing type player, whether it be defensive side or offensive line, in my opinion. So that would kind of be why I would say just tank it. It's already bad enough. I mean, maybe win this game because you don't want to be the team that lost to the Colts where everyone was making fun of them. So I'm a little scared about this week, but for everything else, I think they should maybe try and tank. I mean, I feel silly for saying that about my own team, but I kind of feel like it's like we need a game changer. Like we really do. And if they got a quarterback, I'm okay with that too. I'd rather keep Derek Carr, and that's where the next question is going to come in. So Cody, should they get rid of Derek Carr and restart, or do you think they should fire Josh McDaniels? I'm not saying like, oh, they're going to, but if you had to pick one, which one would you rather do?
So I've still been wrestling with this question all day from when you posed it, and I'm not confident with either one of them. I'm going to be honest. I mean, some part of me, my knee-jerk reaction is Josh McDaniels, but I also am trying to just see in the perspective, okay, it's literally his first 8 games in the season. He hasn't coached in over 10 or whatever the number is. Maybe it's players, maybe, whatever the case may be. And then my initial thought is for Derek Carr is he's been with this team for nearly 10 years now. Sometimes he does make questionable decisions with throwing the ball or turning it over. And then on the other hand, though, in those 9 years, we've had a lot of success out of spite, bad coaching, or whatever the case may be. But I think I would say if this was a different head coach, I would probably side with keeping the head coach over Derek Carr. But because it's Josh McDaniels, and I think, again, I'm going to go back to what we kind of talked about last week, which is, we all bought into the hype of Josh McDaniels. He's learned. He's coming from the Patriots organization. We have a Super Bowl caliber coach. And then come to find out Josh McDaniels seems almost worse than he was when he was with Denver. And that's frustrating because, as what you pointed out last week, is a lot of these players, a lot of these veterans that were on a playoff team last year, majority of them are back. The core is back. And yet we're regressing we're now fighting for a number 3 draft pick, essentially. So, that's what is, for me, why I would say I would dump Josh McDaniels before Derek Carr. Now, I'm not trying to say that Derek Carr is a savior for the Raiders. I'm not trying to say that I will choose him over any other quarterback. Truth be told, if it was even a slight upgrade at quarterback, like we had a discussion last year or earlier this year in the offseason when there was rumors that Aaron Rodgers was going to leave. Now, if you ask me, would you think about getting rid of Aaron Rodgers for Derek Carr? Some part of me would say, yeah, because he's got the talent and, he's mobile and in my opinion, he throws the ball a little bit better than Derek Carr. And I feel like he would work really well with our weapons. But that doesn't mean that I don't like Derek Carr. It just means that, he's been there for a while and, Aaron Rodgers is a significant upgrade as just the example. But I would still keep Derek Carr because out of the 9 years or nearly 10 years he's been with the Raiders organization, out of all the regimes he's gone through, the coaching, the OCs, all that stuff, he still remained a consistent player within the locker room to where he has not lost that leadership. Guys come to play for him all the time. Past and present teammates are always fighting by his side to play for him and play with him, which I think speaks to that. And also, too, it takes a certain coach to turn a player like Derek Carr to where he is now saying cryptic messages at the press conference post-game. Because I remember one of the first seasons or two with John Gruden, I was pointing this out, that Derek Carr does not look like he likes playing. He's more so arguing with John Gruden, and they're butting heads. Eventually, though, sick to say, but they seem to be working it out. Year 4 or 5 of John Gruden's time there, and the team looked pretty good. But I would say there's something of a coach that has to push Derek Carr to the point to where he's not even giving a vote of confidence at the press conference about his head coach and alluding to that he wants to say more about the situation. Obviously, he's a professional, so he won't. But in this scenario between the two, I would side with I would get rid of Josh McDaniels before Derek Carr for the reasons I've stated. I think that Josh McDaniels is probably a really good OC, maybe not that great of a head coach as what we're seeing, but I think that there is something to say about Derek Carr being a consistent leader in the locker room and never losing teammates, and not a teammate ever bad-mouthing or saying like they didn't like playing for him, or they don't always want to play for him because he's a hell of a teammate. He even did his best to be open-minded about Antonio Brown when we traded for him, and a bevy of other players who Justin Tucker speaks very highly of Derek Carr. James Jones speaks very highly of Derek Carr. So he's got numerous former and present players that always play for him. And yet Josh McDaniels looks like he's already losing the locker room in his first season. So that's why I would keep Derek Carr.
Yeah, I'd say fire McDaniels. If I'm not even saying what if, I'm saying do it. I know. Listen, it's what Colin Cowherd has been saying. Like, if you're an owner, or even just a person who works in an everyday life, like not in this high powered sports world, if you double down on a mistake, it doesn't make it better. It makes you look even worse. And I feel like if you're Mark Davis, the only reason I think McDaniels is going to end the year is because I think Mark Davis is like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? I can't fire another coach mid-year, back-to-back years. I can't do it. I really think that's what he's thinking. So I think his thought is, let's just let him finish out the year, see how the year ends, and then we'll make that decision. So yes, of course, he's coming out and saying, no, he's our coach, he's our head coach, all these reports. But I saw a tweet by Raider Cody, who I follow on Twitter, and he really put out. I thought it was spot on. It was a reporter that put, Mark Davis is still reiterating that, Josh McDaniels is our head coach of the future, blah blah blah, and Raider Cody just put, I wish we had a head coach where this wasn't a story, where this wasn't had to be said. And it's so mind-blowing. Like, that's crazy that we have a coach and it seems like every week, no, Josh McDaniels is our head coach. Nope, Josh McDaniels is our head coach. I wish we had a coach where it was like, nope, so-and-so is ready to go for this week, like instead of talking about the head coach. And that's where it gets bad. That's where it gets bad. I mean, for God's sakes, at the end of the year, we were talking about maybe Rich Bisaccia should be the head coach. And now we're talking about Josh McDaniels being fired right away. Like, to me, that's not a coincidence. That's not like, oh, he's just having a bad time. Because Rich Bisaccia had a worse Raider team, and that team went to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And now McDaniels has the best receiver in the game, has arguably a top 3 tight end, has one of the best slot receivers, best route runners in the league in Hunter Renfrow. You have right now a top 5 running back. And yes, your defense is bad, but they still did it last year. So I'm not understanding what the issue is here, other than, Derek Carr has regressed. Darren Waller never plays. Renfro has regressed. Adams has been great. Jacobs has been great, but Chandler Jones has regressed almost horribly. And they, for some reason, they're all regressing. The offensive line regressed. The defensive line regressed. The linebackers have regressed. The whole defensive back unit has regressed. That, to me, is coaching, and that's why I would fire McDaniels. I like Derek Carr. It's no surprise here. I'm with you. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they went after another quarterback. I was listening to Colin Cowherd this morning, and he was saying, sometimes relationships run its course. And I think Carr may have had his relationship run its course with the Raiders, which is sad because he had Trent Dilfer on there, he said, I don't think anyone wants to be a Raider more than Derek Carr.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, maybe I'm weird, but I want guys like that on my team. I want guys to want to win for the Raiders. That's why the Raider Nation loves Max Crosby, because he got a tattoo of the Raiders on his arm. Like, he's a Raider. Like, that's what he wants to do. He wants to win. Derek Carr is that same way. So to me, it blows my mind that the whole Raider Nation is like, oh, he's terrible. He's the worst. First of all, he's not terrible. I really still believe that he is a top 10 quarterback. Is he playing like that right now? No. But I do feel in my heart at least number 10 on that list of the quarterbacks. I would still stick with Derek Carr because I think he's the reason Devontae Adams was there. He's the reason that Amari Cooper wanted to stay a Raider and we got rid of him. He's the reason that Khalil Mack was super upset at the Raiders for letting him go, because Khalil Mack wanted to play with Derek Carr and wanted to win with Derek Carr, and they still talk about it. I mean, I don't think it's weird that all these players, James Jones has come out and said Derek Carr is a wonderful guy, love playing with him. Jordy Nelson even came out and said that he loved playing. Hunter Renfro wanted to play with him. He took all that. He took some money. And Derek Carr even said, I'm going to take less, so you sign Darren Waller and Hunter Renfro. And what did they do? They signed Darren Waller and Hunter Renfro. Those guys stayed because of Carr, not because of McDaniels, because of Carr. Get rid of McDaniels. Don't double down on a mistake. Get rid of him. Kick him out of the building. Go after someone who you actually believe, not who, hey, he had 10 years as an offensive coordinator. He learned from his mistakes. No, we're not doing this anymore. Go after a guy who's been established. Go after a guy like an Eric Bieniemy, a guy who's been successful his whole career in Kansas City. And it's amazing that he doesn't have a head coaching job right now. That's who you and I wanted last year. We were saying, go after Bieniemy. That would make so much sense. And they didn't. Now's your chance. You got another chance. I would be okay with Jim Harbaugh. Sean Payton would be at the top of my list. I mean, and you look at Sean Payton, he talks about the Raiders like this team should be like Super Bowl bound, because he's probably drawing up plays like, oh, I would have Carr do this. And he is. Yeah. And so this is not an unattractive job. This is a really attractive job. So if you're Mark Davis, cut your losses and go after someone who's going to be successful at the head coaching and who has done it before, not another Josh McDaniels who basically was a project and it's not working out. Sorry, I went on a whole tangent, but
I loved it.
All right. Well, we need to definitely take a break because we've gone way over. And when we come back, we'll have some World Series talk, some Laker news that there's been a rumor been going around. I heard a rumor. If you don't know what that's from, you need to get on your Netflix and watch it. Anyway, and hopefully if we have a little bit of time, we can talk a little San Francisco Giants offseason. So stay tuned. Well, Cody, before we get into the World Series topic, I just wanted to shout out Nick real quick for asking or commenting on our video here a couple of times to kind of talk with us and kind of create a couple of questions. So I appreciate you, Nick. And as always, appreciate you letting me into your league that I'm starting to slowly creep in there, baby. 5-game win streak. Anyway, I had to put that out there. I started 0-4, and now I'm 5-4. It's absolutely insane. Anyway, I just had to throw that out there. I'm so impressed with myself.
I know. Move on, kid. Move on.
All right. So the Houston Astros, Cody, unfortunately, to many people's anger, the Astros win the World Series. First of all, as a Giants fan, I'm really happy for Dusty Baker. I really wanted him to win one in San Francisco. We had that chance in 2002 against the Angels, but the Angels just came in hot and never stopped. And Barry Bonds was literally the only one in that series that was hitting. So you know, it was unfortunate to see him not win one there, but I'm glad he finally got to win one. He definitely deserved it. He's one of the more well-liked managers in the league, and so really happy to see him. And Mauricio Dubon, a guy who was traded to the Astros mid-year from the Giants. You know, he was starting to do kind of well for the Giants, but unfortunately, we just weren't having it this year. We just could not. We had kind of a crowded outfield, and he was mainly an infielder, but we had a crowded infield too. So we kind of had to throw, and we wanted to play him as much as we could, but unfortunately, we just didn't have the room. So we were able to trade him to a contending team that could use him, and I'm glad that he got to be used a little bit. So congratulations to the Astros. As much as I'm not really a huge fan of them, or I was definitely rooting against them, you know, you got to give it up to them. They played extremely well. But there was something I was kind of talking about all year long and all playoff season long. This is a really deep team. And Cody, do you think that this team was the deepest team in all of baseball this year?
Well, I don't know about deepest, but they definitely had inside and out of their lineup hitters and contributors. And I think obviously this team at its core had been together for many years. And I think it goes to what you and I always talk about is you got to keep them together to create a little continuity, to create that sense of playing for one another. It's not something that you can just throw together and, you know, hope it all works out. You know, I kind of say like the Phillies are that prototypical. They signed Bryce Harper. They had all these other hitters that were in there that had, I think this was their only season they were together. But the Astros, you know, Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, they've all kind of been together for a few seasons now and been coached by Baker. So this team has been together, and I think Verlander's been with the team for 5 seasons or something like that. So this team has been together. Yeah. Okay. So this team has been together still, though, quite a bit longer than majority of the teams. And I think there's just something with that organization that they just continue to find hitters in their farming system, and they just, you know, create great deals. And
well, they have really good trash cans too. So
yeah, I hear it, one of a kind. And you know, there's just something to say about 6 consecutive conference championship series, and I believe now 4 series wins that led them into the World Series in that same time frame. So deepest, I'm not sure, but they were definitely the team that outlasted everybody. And I think, though, if the Dodgers were healthy, they would have given them a really good run for their money, because I think the only team that really could have kept up with them and maybe even, you know, claimed a victory over them would have been the Dodgers had they been fully healthy. But clearly not having their starting pitcher Walker Buehler was a big issue with them. And I think the Astros, their bullpen really stepped up. Their other starters other than Verlander, they just outplayed what the expectations were. And it just showed, man. I mean, it's just Astros are a really good organization regardless of the cheating scandal, and they continue to always be at the end. And I know people hate it, but that's just the facts. Like, they may be the New England Patriots of baseball, but they find a way to get it done when it matters, when they're there. And I know everyone hates it, but it is what it is. So
I actually do believe they are the deepest team. As much as I want to say the Dodgers and the Dodgers are extremely deep, obviously the injuries got to be a little too much. But I think the Astros were well constructed. Yeah, they had an old guy in Justin Verlander, and you could probably say Jose Altuve is up there in age now, and they traded for Christian Vasquez, who's kind of a veteran as well. So they have a few of these older guys, but a lot of their older guys are guys who, as you alluded to, kind of have been in the organization for a little while anyway. So it really wasn't that far fetched to see these guys excel. Whereas, like in the Dodgers organization, it just seemed like they're old guys. They hadn't been there other than like Clayton Kershaw. They hadn't been there for very long. And their pitching rotation was really depleted for all of this year for Los Angeles. I mean, constant injuries in that rotation. So, as much as I want to say they were deep, at the same time, it kind of proved that they weren't, because they couldn't overcome all of that. Like, yeah, they were winning those games in the regular season, but I mean, you look at you look at just that batting lineup, it was ridiculous. With the Astros, they weren't throwing out consistently just 5 guys in the rotation. They were having basically a 7, arguably an 8-man rotation at times. They were just throwing just guys from the bullpen when they needed a bullpen game, or they needed a spot starter, whatever it may be. They just ended up throwing whoever they wanted to out there, and they were doing it really well. But the other thing that I wanted to bring up, which I was actually talking to my brother-in-law this past week, is the fact that they got rid of Carlos Correa. Everyone was like, I'm surprised they got rid of him. I mean, I thought he was ride or die for Jose Altuve. These guys were great friends. I know he wanted a lot of money, but I think there was a story that he was kind of willing to take a little bit less to stay with Houston, all that jazz. And then all of a sudden you see why. Well, this kid named Jeremy Pena, who I think played really well. I think arguably played better than Carlos Correa would have this year. I think he proved why. Now, he is a rookie. He could hit, the sophomore slump next year. Who knows? But the way he played this year, he was phenomenal. And he was starting in the World Series. And there was never a question whether he should start or not. I mean, this guy held that position for a while. I mean, I had him in fantasy baseball, and I thought I picked him up because one of my players got hurt, and he was starting to kind of get hot, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to use him. And I kept him for the rest of the year. I mean, this guy was phenomenal. And it just goes to show you that this organization, we've heard the cheating scandal. I made the joke of the trash cans or whatnot, but they're really good at scouting talent. I mean, that was the other thing. They got rid of George Springer and Carlos Correa, 2 arguably one of the best players on their teams. They got rid of them, threw in Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, then they're starting, and then Jeremy Pena, and all of a sudden they're better. And Alvarez is this power hitter who was second in the AL in home runs, only second to, obviously, Aaron Judge. You have Kyle Tucker, who is a guy who can hit for average, is a guy who hits for power, and is fast on the base pass, can steal bases for you when you need to. He's got a pretty good glove as well. You talk about Jose Altuve. I mean, he's been there for years. Julio Gurriel. But then when Gurriel needed to take a break, they traded for Trey Mancini, who was a phenomenal hitter. Alex Bregman, who didn't have the best of the years, but did what they needed him to do when he needed to do it. They traded for Christian Vasquez, who everyone was saying really the only biggest hole that the Astros had at the time was catcher. And so they went and traded for a catcher. And their bullpen was phenomenal this year. Their rotation was phenomenal this year. I got to say, man, I mean, I think they were the deepest team this year, but I think next year they probably won't. I think you're going to see maybe a slight regression from Pena. I think, there's a lot of tape on Pena now. So I think he's going to hit a pretty big slump, but I think he's good enough. I think he is a really talented player where he's not going to, be one and done. I think he's
Mhm.
going to be one of those guys who, he's going to be solid, kind of like what Carlos Correa was. I think he'll be better, but I do think next year, if you're going to draft him in a fantasy baseball league, be aware he's probably going to have a pretty big slump, maybe for like a month or something. But we'll see if they're going to be able to retain Justin Verlander. I think Verlander obviously helped immensely
Yeah.
for this team. And I don't know if they're going to be able to retain Mancini or Vasquez. And I think there's another. I can't really think of the other player that could be leaving as well. But I think the Astros might get kind of some of their players picked away from them.
Mhm.
So I don't think they're going to be the deepest team next year. But this year, I do think after all said and done, you kind of look at it and you go, I think the Astros, I mean, if not, I have no problem someone saying the Dodgers because they were super deep. But I just have the feeling of when Verlander was hurt, he was on the IL, I think once or twice during the year. They were moving like it was nothing, and I know the Dodgers did, but then the Astros proved that they can still continue it even so, and
Mhm.
the Dodgers obviously kind of lost it at the end. So I think the Astros were the deepest team in the league.
Yeah.
All right, Cody. So I heard a rumor that the Lakers are shopping around Anthony Davis and trying to possibly get a deal done by
Mhm.
Thanksgiving. Now, this is a report by Bill Simmons. Now, there's an argument that a lot of people are in an argument at this that Bill Simmons isn't technically a reporter.
Uh-huh.
But let me tell you, Bill Simmons is one of the most connected guys in the NBA. Okay.
Yeah.
Just because he's not considered a reporter doesn't mean that he doesn't have inside sources. Trust me, he does. A lot of things that he has said have come to fruition because he
Mhm.
kind of knows what's happening in the inner circle. So let me be clear by that. This was on his podcast on Monday. On Sunday it came out. I listened to his podcast every episode that he puts out there, and I was listening to this, and they were kind of going over like, okay, if they are shopping him, what are they going to get for him? What are the Lakers looking to do? And I think that's the biggest question. It
Mhm.
wasn't like, is it crazy that they're going to try and trade Anthony Davis? I think everyone is at the point where it's like, it's not crazy, but what are they going to get for it is what would
Mhm.
be crazy. So, Cody, that's the question I'm going to ask you. If the Lakers do trade Anthony Davis, what do you think they will try and get, or what do you think they will get?
So I think what they're going to try to target is I think they're going to still try to target the Nets just because, just like what we talked about last week, how disorganized they are with the whole Kyrie Irving situation and, them firing Steve Nash. I think that they may use Anthony Davis as a trade piece to maybe entice getting Kevin Durant. I don't know how well that'll work, but yeah, I would like for that too. They could also reach out to some teams that may be looking to tank that are willing to add in like a veteran piece to help grow a team and maybe secure some additional assets. I don't know if that means they'd secure a player or anything like that for the Lakers, but I think what I'm more surprised in is Anthony Davis would hold more value for sure in getting back assets. I don't know what team necessarily. Maybe Chicago is a team that stands out in my mind that might be willing to trade for Anthony Davis, and I don't know if that means maybe we can get DeMar DeRozan and a couple of other collection of players. That wouldn't be too terrible. The only thing is that wouldn't really solve our shooting problem. But I don't hate the idea. I'm kind of on board with it at this point. I think anything that's not LeBron needs to be up for sale, so to speak. Some part of me as a Lakers fan, though, that's a Laker, not a LeBron fan, is also entertaining. Like maybe question if getting LeBron, trading away LeBron is also a better idea for the franchise. Just because if we're so strapped for draft picks and grow our team and our future hangs on LeBron James, who's aging, continuously being injured, and we're still holding on to Westbrook for one more season, maybe we look at that as well. But as far as like a particular team, I think the Nets are the only one that stand out for me for Anthony Davis. I know that if you go to ESPN.com, you can kind of do a couple of different trade scenarios for different players. I think in the offseason,
I'm going to do that tonight. I didn't know that.
I think in the offseason, I tried doing one with DeAndre Ayton. And that one was a little tougher because it required a lot of money to be exchanged. And I don't know if the Suns will do that, but I know that the Suns and DeAndre Ayton's relationship isn't the greatest. So maybe that's an opportunity. Maybe you use AD to get Chris Paul, who's aging. I don't know if the Suns are interested in that. That's just a couple of things I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe deal with Boston, who might be looking for some more interior help. But that's probably the only couple of ones that would really stand out to me if this does happen. And by Thanksgiving, we're talking 2 weeks away. So that's kind of crazier to think that how much different this roster is going to look by this time.
Well, I don't think it would be crazy in the sense of I don't think this is new information. I think this is just information that has finally come out. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, I have obviously I know nothing, but well, I don't know. Not nothing, but I don't know anything. Anyway, so I just feel like talks have been happening because I don't think the Lakers are that delusional to think, oh, we're never going to trade Anthony Davis. I think they're kind of already like, in the offseason, I think they were like, I don't know, are we really going to do that or not? And call me crazy, but I actually think, although I don't think Anthony Davis is as good as LeBron James, and although I don't think Anthony Davis is highly thought of as high as LeBron James, however, I do think that Anthony Davis actually would, if you traded him, I think you would actually get more in return than LeBron. And the reason I say that is LeBron kind of does have a timetable. Anthony Davis, although he does get injured a lot and he doesn't have that killer instinct in him all the time, I do, however, think that he has the talent to be an MVP type caliber player if he's healthy. And secondly, if he does stay healthy, he could play for another, I don't know, 7-8 years possibly. Whereas LeBron, you're kind of like maybe 3 years, maybe 4, if he can, keep up what he's doing. And so your future, especially if you're going to trade a lot of assets for it, I think you feel better about trading for Anthony Davis than LeBron James. Now, if you're a team that is trying to win now, then yes, you feel better about trading for LeBron James. But if you're like you're saying, you go to a team that's kind of rebuilding, I'm just going to throw Orlando out there, who they would never do it because I think they got who they want now.
Yeah.
But I just think that you could get a bigger haul for Anthony Davis. You could get multiple picks, whereas LeBron James, you could probably get 3 or 4, maybe first-round picks, and that maybe a player back. But I think for Anthony Davis, you could argue you could get like 5 picks, maybe like 4 or 3 first-round picks, and then 2 second-round picks, and then get a player back as well. I would look at Indiana. I think Miles Turner has already said, hey, I would go there. Listen, I don't think that's that crazy. I think Miles Turner is a better shooter than Anthony Davis. He is a shot blocking center. He doesn't have that dog that Anthony Davis sometimes has. But I think at this point, it's kind of like, well, just let LeBron do it. I mean, he's already doing it anyway. He's running the team, so might as well get a guy who can be a spot-up shooter and hit some threes. And I had told you this on the Bill Simmons podcast. He was talking to Kevin O'Connor, and Kevin O'Connor posed this question to Bill Simmons. He said, out of the top 50 players who run ISO, who have had ISO plays, where do you think Anthony Davis ranks out of those 50 players? He ranks 48th in efficiency percentage, which means when he's playing ISO, he's not all that effective. So might as well get rid of him, get something in return. Now, I have been on the case for a long time. Go after Kevin Durant. Now, they brought that up. They said that if they were going to get Kevin Durant for Anthony Davis, and probably Kyrie would be a package deal as well, and so you'd probably have to throw in Russell Westbrook or something like that.
Mhm.
But if that's what you're going to do, it may not develop until the off season after this year. So they were arguing maybe possibly trade Anthony Davis for a bunch of picks. Then in the offseason, trade a lot of those picks to Brooklyn, where you can then get Kevin Durant and all that. So they were kind of throwing out a bunch of different trade scenarios, but that was kind of that's kind of what they came up with, was probably get a big haul for Anthony Davis where you're just going to kind of tank this year, make those trades to get Kevin Durant and have KD and LeBron play.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love that, but don't know if the NBA will allow it, because it's a funny season. Teams like Houston come to mind, the Spurs. They could be teams that are willing to give away draft picks for a player like that maybe could use a veteran big man who's relatively young, to your point.
Yeah.
But we'll see, man. I mean, I think it's more likely that the Lakers won't deal Anthony Davis, because I think it's early enough in the season to where, especially at Thanksgiving, that they're still going to feel like we can probably make a run with it, especially now that they moved Westbrook to the bench. And he's actually been playing really well since coming off the bench. I've been really happy about that. And again, not trying to say that Westbrook is a terrible player. He's really great. It's just terrible the situation he's in. And, the LA market will literally devour you if you don't produce. And unfortunately, when you go through slumps that he normally goes through a season, it's very magnified because of the market that you're in. So I'm glad to see that he's flourishing coming off the bench. I'm just hoping now that it translates to more wins. So I almost feel like that the the Lakers may continue to ride this out to see what they have, because at the end of the day, if they can't find a suitor for Westbrook, he's got to be a free agent. So we guarantee that he won't be a Laker after this season. Now, the question is, will he finish the season as a Laker or finish it as another member of a different team? I think the Lakers would only pull the trigger on getting rid of Anthony Davis if it was for a high-profile player such as Kevin Durant. I think anything less than that, they're not pulling the trigger. Maybe come the trade deadline, they may entertain it just because they may be too far gone and a contender may be willing to pay a king's ransom for Anthony Davis. But I don't see the Lakers giving up Anthony Davis at all this season unless it is Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I will also say this. If Russell Westbrook keeps playing the way he does, I think there's a possibility that you could end up trading Russell Westbrook to sell high on him, and Anthony Davis to get a Kevin Durant and a Kyrie. And I know a lot of people are like, I don't want Kyrie right now. But listen, Kyrie is a better shooter than Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis. So he already makes the Lakers better. Unfortunately, that's kind of how life is right now for the Lakers. It's kind of like, you're going to have to take the good with the bad. Yeah. I think if that is the case, if they end up trading like Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis to get Kyrie and KD, you may not have to give up as much as you think you would, because the way Westbrook is playing versus the way Kyrie has kind of had a year so far, you could argue that Westbrook has kind of found his groove where Kyrie is still trying to find it. And now he's suspended and, he's got all this other stuff that's going on. So you could make the case that maybe they've been holding on to these first round draft picks, these, freshmen in high school draft picks right now. Maybe they only have to give up one of them, maybe they don't have to give up both, but we'll see. I mean, it's all speculation right now, but I think this would actually be a really smart move for the Lakers to try and move on Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
All right. So do we have time for the last topic, or we got to go?
Nah, let's just do it. We're already here.
All right. So I did want to talk about a little bit about San Francisco Giants offseason, Cody. So obviously, as we talked about, the Astros won the World Series. So off season begins. So the GMs are meeting next week in Vegas. And then beginning of December, I want to say December 6th. I'm not 100% on that. I'm just doing this off memory right now. Is the winter meetings. And the winter meetings is basically where all these trades and signings happen for Major League Baseball. We missed out on it last year because of the lockout. So this year I'm really excited about it. Obviously, the biggest name is Aaron Judge being out on the market. The Giants Carlos Rodon opted out of his deal. So he's going to be a free agent. Trey Turner is rumored to be out there. The Angels said they're not willing to trade Ohtani, but seriously, once these winter meetings happen, they're going to be floating Ohtani out there a lot. So Angels fans, I know you're kind of like, oh yeah, we're not going to trade Ohtani. There's always a price, believe me. So that might happen. Obviously, Jacob deGrom is a free agent. God, there's so many guys out there. So it's going to be a spicy off season. So I kind of wanted to talk about who I think the Giants need to go after, because this is something that the Giants haven't had in a long time, where they've had a lot of money to spend. Obviously, they've already come out and said, we're going to pay whatever Aaron Judge wants to be paid, within reason, of course. But they've already said, we're getting Aaron Judge. It's a done deal, basically. We'll see if that really happens. I mean, I do think, as much as the Giants are saying all this, there probably is a price where they're like, okay, we're not going to go that far. But I do feel like they really want Aaron Judge, which, hey, I think he would be a great fit. He's got enough power. He's got enough size to be able to hit just as well as he did in New York as he would in San Francisco. A lot of hitters are deterred from San Francisco because it is a pitching ballpark. Well, Aaron Judge has the power to where, sometimes when that wind isn't blowing very well out in outfield, it's kind of like killing those balls. He still has enough muscle to get it over the fence. So I think he would still be fine. I think he would fit well. It's a team that he grew up, and he would get paid a lot of money. And to be honest, Gabe Kapler has been really good with guys who get injured a lot, and he's been able to manage guys with these injuries. He's been able to, all right, hey, we'll sit you out here. Brandon Crawford this year, he was basically our only shortstop, yet he still figured out a way to get him all his rest days. And he's not even like that big of a bat. So bringing Aaron Judge, I think he would do really phenomenal with Judge. And then the other thing is I do think that the Giants are going to need to go after a lot of starting pitching. We thought Alex Cobb was going to do okay, which he did. He did fine. I don't think he did terrible. Jacob Junis was a nice surprise for the Giants. But other than that, it wasn't fantastic. I mean, obviously Logan Webb. I'm just talking about the guys who are, may or may not be there next year. Carlos Rodon, I think we need to re-sign him. I think that was a guy who, he's in his prime right now, and if you only want to sign him to another 2-year contract where he could opt out after the end of this year as well, that's fine. Or a 3-year contract, I'm good with that. But I wouldn't go probably more than 4 years. Another guy I would really think about is actually Jacob deGrom. I think he's actually going to be signing cheaper than what a lot of people think he will. And I think the Giants are one of those few teams that can figure out a way to do that. The reason I say that is because they have found, like the Carlos Rodon deal that they did this year. I think they could give a deal similar to Jacob deGrom. Like, hey, listen, if you start this many games, then, you get this incentive. You know what I mean? So, with Carlos Rodon, they were like, if you have a hell of a year, you can opt out. And that's exactly what he did. He had a hell of a year, and he opted out, and he could sign even bigger. And it was still a huge contract that the Giants gave him. So I think there could be a similar deal to that. But what I also do think the Giants are going to have to do is they're going to have to go after either a Trey Turner. I hope they don't go after Carlos Correa. I'm not. I like Carlos Correa. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he fits San Francisco for what they're doing. And I think Trey Turner is a guy who would be more willing to, hey, I'll play second base when Brandon Crawford wants to play shortstop. Hey, I'll play as DH a couple of times or whatever. But basically, what I'm saying here is the Giants need to spend money this offseason. They have to do it. And the reason being is they've gotten away with, hey, we're going to pay these little contracts, we're going to pay these little contracts, they pay these little contracts. And it was working fine. But this year, they lost a lot of games because they just didn't have that go-to guy in the bullpen or the go-to guy in the rotation other than, Rodon and Webb. And they had no bat. I mean, there was no like real reliable bat that you were like, oh, this is for sure. So not only are you going to have to spend money on Judge, but you're also going to have to get another hitter. And I think that should be Trey Turner. I think that should be those two guys should be the go-to guys. And then they're going to have to address the starting pitching. I've always floated that Noah Syndergaard would be a good one because he's going to be on the cheap, but he actually pitched really well for the Phillies and even who was
Angels.
the team? He was Angels. He was pitching okay with the Angels too. So I don't think that's bad, and I think he would really benefit from being in a pitcher's ballpark. So the Giants are going to have to make a huge splash this year, but I hope they re-sign Rodon. I'm not sure they will because I think Rodon is going to want a pretty big contract and a lengthy one, which he absolutely deserves. And I just don't think the Giants necessarily want to do that with Rodon. But I can see a scenario where they sign a similar Rodon type contract with Jacob deGrom. I could see them going after Noah Syndergaard because he is a typical free agent that the Giants would go after. A guy who had some success before, had a lot of injuries. Hey, we can show you that we can fix you up and make you right. So why don't you come to the Giants and you'll have some success here as well. And I could see them, if they can't get a Trey Turner, or let's say they don't get Aaron Judge, I could see them try and make a big trade for Shohei Ohtani.
I think the Shohei Ohtani one's a little rich for them. I actually hope that the Giants go after Judge with no apprehension. I know that there's a price for everything, and they may hold firm and think that it's a certain number, but I just think that for the city of San Francisco, they need a face to it. And I think that arguably Aaron Judge would be a big commodity that the Giants need just on advertising, merchandise. I think as a face of a franchise, probably wouldn't have seen anything as big since like Barry Bonds. I really think the Giants should just pay whatever it takes to get him there, even if that's overpaying. Usually every player gets overpaid at some point in time. Most of these times at the end of these players' contracts, they're not even worth the last remaining amount. So it's already given that you're going to overpay at some extent. I think right now they need that player that you're mentioning. All this small market contracts that they've been doing before, I think they do need something that's going to revitalize that team.
Can I cut you off real quick? To your point, exactly what you're saying is the Giants were striving for a big name so bad that when we traded for Chris Bryant a couple of years ago, or I'm sorry, it was last year, when we traded for Chris Bryant, I mean, his jerseys were flying off the shelf. I mean, it was a big name, and we were dying for him to re-sign. Now, it ended up being a good thing because he really didn't have that good of a year. He was just injury-riddled all year long this year. But like, that's how bad San Francisco was dying for a name. And then when we got Carlos Rodon, we were like, oh, we're going to make another splash. And then we never did. And everyone was really disappointed. I mean, Jock Peterson was a really good player. And that's another guy I hope we get to resign, because I felt like he was really good for us. And I felt like he really fit what the Giants were doing. But it was just like, it wasn't that big of a name that we were hoping for, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it ended up not being great because he was it was him and Rodon, and that was basically all we did all off season, other than signing Alex Cobb here and signing a couple of bullpen guys. I mean, it wasn't great. So that's how starved San Francisco is for star power. So to your credit.
Yeah, and I would say too, in addition to, again, I would say back up the brink truck for Aaron Judge. I do think though that not only do the Giants need to address their pitching, I was thinking the same thing you were about them going after DeGrom. I wouldn't be opposed if they gave him a longer type of contract with a little bit more money to entice him, just because I think DeGrom is like this hidden gem that if he stays healthy, he is, I've heard this all across social media and all the baseball aficionados that are saying like he is one of the greatest pitchers to have ever thrown the ball in the majors when he's healthy.
Yeah.
I think if the Giants have a legit opportunity, even if it is a couple extra years on a contract, I think it's worth it. I mean, what they have now is good. I think Logan Webb will get better from next season, but to have another ace like DeGrom, as what you mentioned, maybe even if we can land Syndergaard with a team-friendly deal, with a prove-it type of deal like what you were alluding to. I do think, though, I really do hope that the Giants do also address the defensive problems that they had this year, getting some players that can stay a little bit healthier, deepen that bench, strengthen the bullpen like what we were talking about, and especially that defense. Our defense really let us down in some pivotal moments.
Yeah.
I mean, in the winter meetings, we'll see what all happens, but I really do hope that the Giants are serious about spending the legitimate money, doing what it takes to put this team over the top. I really think this team could be special with the right pieces in place. And, I think it just takes ownership and management. It takes guts and it takes a willingness to take a chance on some players and not be conservative when you're giving out monies or contracts. And I understand the point as to why, but there's a lot of these teams that are now spending money to be relevant, and I think the Giants should be in that same camp, considering, they've got a team that just needs a couple of guys and maybe a face to the team, and I think that they can do something special. But they definitely need a rebound year from what we were anticipating this year from what they did in their playoff run the year before. So.
All right, Cody. Well, we have exhausted every single topic, man. We did it. It was a marathon, but you know what? We did a great job in it. So good job by you, sir. Thank you guys for listening. We always appreciate the love and support that we get from you guys. So thank you so much. And go follow us on all of our social media sites, being Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. Also, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube page. We always want to hear from you as well, so please like and comment as you see when we are on here live. We will answer any questions that you have, if it's a valid question or if it's something that we're talking about. But no, we'll usually try and answer your question anyway. But anyway, go and do all that, and then also hit that subscribe button on all the podcasts, on the major podcast sites, Apple, Spotify, iHeart. So go check all those out, and please leave us a review as well, a rate and review. If it's a 1-star, let us know how we can get that up to a 5-star. And if it is a 5-star, let us know what you liked about the show so we can continue to do what we do. And I want to shout out FNX Fit and SeatGeek and also Fanatics, who are great partners that we have. And we are so happy to have them on board. SeatGeek and FNX Fit both have promo codes for that, which will be in the description in the episode. Also will be on the YouTube videos and also on all of our social media sites. And Fanatics, also use the link that we have also in the description and also on all the videos and all the social media sites. So go check all those out. We always appreciate all the love and support that we get from you guys. So thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Cody to finish this off.
All right, guys. Well, that's pretty much it for the show. Drew, good on you, mate, for being able to knock out all those. You did good, man. So again, you guys follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Drew Code Sports Talk is the handle. If you guys are wanting any of the recording equipment, the microphones, the software, whatever that we use to make this show possible, the link to the Amazon links essentially to purchase all this equipment is available there as well. And again, I will be working on our new drewcode.com website. So that way all of this is on one central site as we had before, but now it's a lot more simpler. Of course, I just have to stop being busy so I can have it properly built, but it's live now. If you guys want to go check it out, there's just simple links on there, but it's nothing to write home about. But anyways, guys, needless to say, we've got lots of great things coming down the pipe for you guys, and we appreciate all of the love and support you guys continue to show us on social media and on here. And we just can't thank you guys enough. So join us next week. Of course, as usual, we'll have new topics. And if you guys want to put a question out on there, leave us in the comments or DM us so that way we can get to it. But other than that, you guys, please be safe, be well, be kind to one another. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you.